All right. Well, this is our kicking off our official first Data on Kubernetes operator SIG meeting. So we're glad to have Patrick and Jonathan here for the first meeting. Hope we can grow the group as we go. Alvaro wanted to come this morning. He couldn't make it, so he sent me a video to share with you all about what he wanted to talk about. So we can talk through that later. But first, I have the agenda here. I just shared it in the chat. We did some introductions before we hit record, so we won't do that again. But I think if you have, I know, Patrick, you've seen the 2022 Data on Kubernetes report. Have you seen it too, Jonathan?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. As I think we all know, we've probably heard that information from customers or people that you talk to that operators are a challenge on Kubernetes. When you're trying to run data workloads. And so that's why we created this group, was to have experts like you come in and talk amongst ourselves about what can we do to help advance the conversation around operators? What can we do to help make it better? I'm just here as a facilitator. You all are the technical experts, so I'm going to let you do most of the talking here, and I will be taking notes for the meeting. I wanted to mention a couple things. One, we spoke to the CNCF tag storage group, and they wanted to work with us on a collaboration on a white paper that they're creating right now. And it's including database patterns in there. And they're looking for 1 or 2 folks to join their biweekly tag meetings to help build out the skeleton for it and then work on it over the next, maybe month or so. So I wanted to throw that out there and see if either of you wanted to do it or if you know someone who would want to participate. Their tag meetings are the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m.
I thought there already was a storage tag.
There is a
tags. Yeah, because the tags are now what the SIGs. They're SIGs, now they're tags. But they're looking to do. They're just kind of splitting things off from storage. Is that it?
So it's the storage tag working group. I mean, it's the SIG storage essentially working group, and they're doing they're creating a white paper, and they want to collaborate with us on it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought all these things were happening, so that's why I'm kind of surprised.
What things were happening? Am I missing?
Because the storage SIG has been very vocal about database operations. And I think mostly it's just because of who's been involved in it. Like Portworx, for instance. I can certainly spread this between our internal groups, our internal Kubernetes groups. I think they might be interested in joining into that.
Okay. Yeah, I think they just wanted to collaborate with us, with the folks from Data on Kubernetes community, and see if we wanted to join and participate in this new white paper that they're working on. And they're going to create a separate working group to focus on this white paper, but they're going to get it started as part of their main storage tag group, having the conversation. And we've been talking with Jing Yang, which some of you might know. She's been at several of our events. She's the co-chair of that group. And so she's asking if we want to collaborate with her on this, and then some other things we're talking about down the line. Maybe some surveys and things like that.
Yeah, and this is just database patterns. See, I'm still not. Well, maybe this is. Is it on that link that you provided?
I don't know that they have the skeleton doc yet. It might be a new white paper that they're working on. Let me see if I've got it somewhere.
Yeah, just curious, what's the goal here? Maybe that would help understanding more, because a white paper on database patterns, that's a pretty broad definition.
This is probably why we need to have somebody there.
Deployment, running, maintenance, storage, database patterns of storage. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I think we have a link to a previous white paper that was related. So I'll see if I can find that, and I'll share it in the Slack group.
I found one here. Is from the Sensitive Storage White Paper version 2, June 3, 2020.
That might be it. That might be their old one. So I'll look and see what I had that they shared with us. They don't, as far as I know, they don't have an outline for the new one yet. We met with them a couple weeks ago, so they might have something more to share now. If they do, I'll put it on the SIG Slack. And the next meeting, I think, is, let's see, it might be next second and fourth Wednesday. So it might be tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. 1 hour before this one, but this is 9.
And what I can also do, I mean, Jing is in the DoK Slack. I'll invite her to the operator SIG Slack and ask her if she can share any more details on it as well.
Yeah, that would be good. This is, I mean, sure, white papers from, I mean, this is what I think these tags should be doing, is providing guidance and that sort of thing. But this seems really ambiguous.
I'm sure they could share more details than I took notes on.
Yeah. Well, okay. 2 years ago, there was not so many databases on Kubernetes and the patterns were not so clear. Everyone was using pretty much none of the new technologies. So they need an update for sure, and a big one. There's a lot of new things out there. The new versions of Crunchy, how they manage everything, stuff like that. And people actually didn't want to put databases on Kubernetes. They were afraid. Now it's not the case.
Yeah, that's not the case. Although large enterprises, and I can see where this, like the big enterprises, the big banks, things like that, they don't want to even think about it. And so this might help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think having some folks from our side on the DoK side, there we can help them frame that up and figure out what should be included and what will help those end users evaluate this. So it sounds like, Patrick, you can make it. Jonathan, is that something that you or maybe someone else can participate in as well?
I don't know if I'll be able to join tomorrow, but for sure I'll talk. We can ask Gabriele. I'll ask Gabriele if he can join.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. I'll connect.
Yeah. Actually, I think that Gabriele already attended those meetings.
Okay. So, I think I've seen him. I've seen other EDB people in there before. Did you have something to say, Patrick?
No, the working group is TBD. So are you saying show up to the regular tag meeting?
Yes. So what they asked was having folks show up to the regular tag meeting as they're creating the skeleton. And then as a group, we'll decide when the breakout will be to focus on the white paper. What kind of days and times?
Is tomorrow the second Wednesday?
Tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Gotta look at my calendar.
I know I had to look. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can or not, but yeah, I'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, and I'll bring Jing into the channel and tag you both, and we can have a conversation there about where they've gotten since I spoke with her last and what next steps she wants for that.
That sounds good to me.
Awesome. Very cool. The next thing on our list is this that I had from Alvaro was this database operator feature project matrix project. Sorry. I'm fighting something, so my voice is a little messed up today. I think I can share the video. Let me see if I can. I don't know if this will work. Will this work? Can I show a recording of a video? Let's try it. And he will be able to join in the next one. He just couldn't make it today. He's on vacation.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more interesting things for sure.
Okay, let's try this, see how it goes. Let me know if the sound comes through okay.
Hello, everybody. If you're watching this video, this means I'm alive. But it means that I'm not able to make it today to the operator special interest group meeting. Sorry about that. I was planning not to, but I'm finally on vacations this week. Anyway, I'm happy to provide some input on the one out of the item list that was essentially on me. So feel free to ping me later. I'm okay receiving feedback. Sorry I cannot answer questions Q&A live, but we can discuss it at a later meeting, or again, as I said, you can ping me on Slack on the group, and I'm happy to share my feedback. The idea of this agenda item was to provide a way, well, essentially it's called the Postgres operator matrix, which will later evolve to the database operator matrix, feature matrix. So the idea, let me describe first the problem, why I came up with this idea, and when I proposed for DoK to house this effort, and I'm very happy, by the way, to share that DoK accepted to house this project in a vendor neutral way. So the problem I'm trying to solve is essentially twofold. And as part of development of an operator, I found a Postgres operator. I have found that users are sometimes confused, or they don't find an easy way of how to understand which features are provided by a given operator. And
unmute yourself, Melissa.
Is replication. Okay, this is a pretty easy one because this is kind of a must, right? But it supports cascading replication? Does it support synchronous replication? Are there any limits specific to replication or backups provided? Managed backups provided? Is PITR supported? There's a certain amount of questions that a user may very legitimately ask about whether an operator supports different characteristics, different features or not. So the first way, the first goal of this project is to provide a standardized set of description and features that a user may look upon. This may eventually, become part of the documentation of the given operators or not. Obviously, this is subject to each and one operator to provide this as a usable feedback for the user or not. But the goal is to standardize, to create a list of features, again, column matrix characterized by some certain topics, again, like replication, not replication, backups, high availability, monitoring capabilities, etc. And standardize the definition, because also when you look at documentation across different operators, they call the same thing differently. And oftentimes, this description leaks details about the internal implementation. So, for example, in Postgres, if we talk about Postgres, we normally talk about major version upgrades. And sometimes this is referred as rolling upgrades, because it's the technique used behind the scenes by Kubernetes to implement these major version upgrades. But if we look from a user perspective, this should be probably called something closer to major version upgrades, because that's the Postgres technology we're talking about, right? So again, the first goal is to create a standardized set of features classified by STEM categories with a description attached that is precise, both for vendors to understand whether that feature is supported or not, and then for the users to look for in a uniform way. The second goal of this effort is feature matrix, again, Postgres operator feature matrix that will evolve to the database operator feature matrix, and maybe even some stateful workloads that are not even strictly database could evolve to, is the first one is, again, as I said, to provide standardized definition of the features and so that the users can look for this information. The second is provide a central hub for the vendors, the creators of these operators, to potentially, optionally, obviously, submit this information, compliance or the adherence to this feature matrix on a per version basis in a vendor, in a place that is vendor neutral and in a way that is machine readable. Let's put it simple, a YAML or JSON file, right? The goal of this is that there's a way for operator vendors to submit this information in a standardized way so that users can also look in a standardized way. Like, again, it's very good if a given operator would take this feature matrix and make it part of their own documentation on their own website. I think this is This is fantastic, and I strongly encourage everybody to do this. But then it should be possible for users to look at this in a neutral way, in a way that houses submissions from all operators. And the idea by making this submission a programmable way or like machine readable format that is also human readable, obviously, is that it can be provided with not just a check, like yes, this operator at this particular version has this feature or not, but rather kind of to provide a justification for it. What is a justification? Like saying it could be a set of links, like links to the 2-3 aspects of the documentation that prove that this given feature is supported. Links to documentation, links to more details about these versions, if there's any restrictions. And then a comments section, which is very important, not only to provide additional details about the level of implementation of this feature, but also if, for example, this feature is chosen not to be developed for a particular reason. Like some things are subject to opinion, and what a given user may consider a feature, another one may consider an anti-feature, and so that a given vendor may not implement this feature. And in this case, it's very important to also have the opportunity to have this field as a comment saying, we don't believe into this, that's why we don't implement this. And, this is all information for the user, because the main problem that this is all trying to solve is that users are sometimes lost. And something that is complex as a database operator, where there's many alternatives, it is sometimes hard to understand which features are implemented and whether you're going to make the switch to even Kubernetes at all, because you are not clear about which capabilities are provided to you. There are tiny efforts in this regards. There is the operator level kind of assurance that Red Hat design. I would consider that extremely basic and potentially misleading. Like almost every operator now is level 4, level 5, when in reality they provide very different capabilities. So how this will be implemented? My idea, and I have quite an advanced prototype that I'm happy to share as early as next week when I return from my vacations, is a feature matrix. That's why it's called a matrix, right? But it's an extensive list of features, around 100 approximately, and they're classified into two dimensions. One is whether the feature is speaking about Postgres, because my proposal starts originally only for Postgres initially, is the first dimension is Postgres specific features. And the idea is to segment them by core features, and their understanding by core things like our table stakes. Like you cannot be without this. They're critical Postgres features that any user may consider almost compulsory to have in any scenario. Like things to have at least the possibility of having high availability, having backups, monitoring. Some users may not need this for production environments, but the goal is to consider this as core features that what a user may say, without this, I can never deploy my Postgres on Kubernetes. So it's to classify them into core features and non-core features, so optional features. But then the other dimension is to separate what are very Postgres specific features from others that are non-Postgres specific, that are more Kubernetes specific, and could apply to other operators that are not Postgres or not even databases. Like, does it support no tolerations? That it supports reading user credentials from secret? Does it support service binding? And these kind of features are features that are not tied to specific Postgres, and such can be separated and marked as non-Postgres specific or general, let's say general operator specific. And this could form the base for this spec to be also or later evolved to a not only Postgres, and other databases can evolve their own by keeping, potentially even growing the set of features that are database type independent and replacing the ones that are Postgres dependent by the equivalents in other databases or other stateful workloads. So the way I envision this working is a GitHub repo hosted under DoK namespace or whatever the SIG considers appropriate, where essentially a markdown text file describes a specification. which is the feature matrix plus an explanation on how it works. And each feature has this very precise description that both for vendors and users that explain what it is in particular, this given feature. And then a submission guide for vendors and a directory to host these files. So that kind of a YAML or JSON, this is to be decided yet, template is provided, where each feature is labeled with an ID, let's say, and then the template is this JSON or YAML file, which contains its ID. And then for each feature, given the ID, the vendor needs to provide the check, this is yes or no, a Boolean value, then a text value, which, in my opinion, should be a kind of a CSV of links, which is somehow an array of links to prove the existence of this given feature. And then a comments field, which is a free text, maybe limited to a certain amount of given size, to describe additional comments or whether the given vendor does not believe this is a good thing to implement, that's why it's not implemented, or essentially anything that the vendor may like to put into this file. And of course, this is version. So if you have version x.y, this will apply to x.y, and then x.w will have something else because maybe the operator has developed new features. So again, to summarize this part, my idea of the implementation is a GitHub repository hosted in DoK namespace or something like this, where there's first the text file with the specification itself. Then there is a template in machine readable format, JSON or YAML or equivalent, for vendors to copy this template and fill it in the information for every version they want to submit. And then a directory for hosting the submissions by vendors by version that they could submit as a pull request to the repo and accept it there. Once this is all done, we may think of doing some next steps that would be, in my opinion, quite beneficial for users, which is a website that will consume these machine-readable submissions and render them on a neutral website, again, hosted at DoK or DoK subdomain or whatever we consider appropriate, to visualize these submissions and even potentially to create a graphical comparator so like this and this, and you see on a column-by-column basis what different operators have done. This is absolutely optional at this stage for me. What is important is the mechanism to have the spec and the submissions by the vendors. Obviously, this is an open spec, subject for everyone to give an opinion. And my idea, as I said, is to submit this draft, potentially of the spec, as early as next week. If that's fine. And then open it for comments as a RFC, request for comments, to complete the spec and to eventually come to a 1.0. At that time, the idea would be to submit it to all known Postgres operator vendors and ask them for their submissions and see how would it work. At some point, we may even think of creating something like this, a seal of compliance, kind of a certification. It's not a certification whether things work or not work or whatever, but whether you comply with this feature matrix, this Postgres operator feature matrix, which could also be a sign of trust for users when browsing your website. They see that, in terms of features, that this operator complies with this standard posted at DoK, which is a vendor neutral space. And it means that it has at least, I guess, one submission for a particular version, and I can see this list of features in a neutral way. And I believe this will bring a lot of value to the Postgres ecosystem. I also believe this could be, with little effort, extended to other databases, and again, other stateful workloads that need not to be necessarily databases. And as such, it would be a great tool for users to be more informed, and potentially to give more confidence to those users that are still less or more hesitant, let's say, to jump into data on Kubernetes to make the move. So again, I'm just closing this topic. If you're seeing this video, it means unfortunately we're not able to make it to the meeting on Tuesday, but I'm ready to open discussion, do a Q&A later on. and discuss anything with you, just let me know, ping me on Slack. I'll reply asynchronously, but as soon as I can. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you very soon at the latest at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so I know Patrick had to go. Just you and I. Yeah. What's your? I saw your notes and chat. What is your initial reaction?
This looks a lot like OperatorHub.io, that is basically defines a set of skills that an operator needs to meet to reach a certain level of the operator. It's basically based on the OLM, which define this, and it's like, you are defining features from that you are supported from one database into Kubernetes. The problem is that not all databases will actually behave the same way. Having replication doesn't mean that there's a lot of different type of replications in Postgres, MySQL, and probably Cassandra and Elasticsearch. So it's kind of difficult to make it match with will actually fit all the database. I mean, it's not a bad idea itself. By itself, it's not, but it's difficult to define. Not impossible.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about this idea and the draft that he has in mind. And this needs to be hosted somewhere.
I had a conversation early with Alvaro. My reaction initially was the same. Shouldn't this go on Operator Hub? Everything's already in there, and could we just extend it? And ultimately, I think because it was more in depth, we were talking about it maybe is better hosted at DoK, where we can add more things that aren't on Operator Hub today, because the what they focus on is different than what this might be. But I'm open to any idea. We could host it on DoK. We're open to that. If it makes more sense on Operator Hub, let's have a conversation about that with this group.
Yeah, because we can probably instead of create something new, we can go and extend OLM. The problem in Kubernetes is that people is using OLM, is using Helm charts, is using YAML files. There are different ways to install. So he wants to provide a way to install those operators in your Kubernetes cluster, or just a guide. If it's a guide, I think that on Kubernetes is the best place to have it, or probably even the tax storage place. But we need to update that because we will be moving. We will be asking people to subscribe the operator to data Kubernetes, and we are going to start with some base that we will create from the beginning, based on we know this list of the operators and database that are actually on the data on Kubernetes community. So we take it and we start with that. So what's the process? The certification process is also something that how you want to solve the certification process. Because different databases is not something that you can create an automation process in CI/CD for that. You will have to do it manually. Who is going to do it? And probably, at the beginning will be a lot of work. It's not like a lot of operators are being added every week or every day, but it's kind of a lot of work. Probably you can organize something that people present the operator and the functionality. You match data, okay, that's possible. But that's something that needs to be solved. And actually, how are you going to know that the operator is still working? It's working. I don't know. People is actually, who is the company behind that? Who is supporting that? There's an active community in that operator. We are going to recommend the use of those operators, or we are going to say it's here. Mm-hmm. You can use it or not. So, but if that on Kubernetes community is going to say, okay, this is the list and we recommend this, there needs to be some work on explore the operators and everything.
Right. And it's not intended to be a recommendation. It's intended to be, here's all the features for end users. Here's the features and here's how you might want to compare as you're looking at which operators to adopt for Kubernetes. So that's, it is, we as a neutral entity don't want to be recommending anything to an end user. Our role and our what we can do is provide information and a path as people are researching this, and that's the intention.
Exactly, and it looks like if we define to properly define what's an operator for database needs in Kubernetes, how it should work, it will end up as a recommendation intrinsically. Probably not a specific recommendation from the data on Kubernetes community, but if we define a set of things that they should have, it will be like, hey, this is the best one, I'm recommending you.
Right. I think that, one of the questions I had, because I think you and maybe Patrick are talking before in the chat about what's the list of features. This is something I'd asked Alvaro about, because the list of features are can be really long, and they're going to vary from operator to operator. So how do we define as a group what is maybe a quote unquote core set of features that are pretty standard? Can we agree on something like that? What are the kind of core things that a data on Kubernetes operator should have? If we can get to that, and then there's going to be some additional features below that maybe aren't the quote unquote standard or core features that each one provides. And so I think if we can do that, we could have maybe 20 exposed up top, and then where you can do a see all and see everything down below, where people can add additional things.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it's possible to define a really not so big, but a really good set of features that an operator should have. Basic ones, starting with, backup. You need to support backup. Replication, you need to support replication. How do you recover? Point-in-time recovery. Every database needs a point-in-time recovery. Stuff like that. Yeah, I think that we can define that. It's not impossible. But we need to define the idea. I'm like, my mind is running and thinking, there's a lot of things that probably can go wrong, and a lot of things that can go in a really good way. So, if we are going to replicate operator hub.io, let's extend operator hub.io.
Right.
Not replicate it.
Yeah.
Or help people to do that. Better to improve something that already exists than create something new from scratch. But if we are not going to do that, we are not going to replicate or do the job that operator hub.io is doing right now, or HelpChart is doing. Probably it's a good idea to create something new. Right. Because another system just to deploy operators, in this case, just of database operators in Kubernetes, looks like a lot of work, and no one will be using just because they want something. They will ask. If you're using OpenShift, you go with operator hub.io or the catalog. If you are using Rancher, you go with him. So the system is already there, and people is using Rancher, and they are using Tanzu, and you need to go with Tanzu. So it's better to improve those systems than create a new one.
Right. Yeah. I think this is a good conversation to have when Alvaro is able to join too on the next call. And other folks that who intended to join this call but couldn't for various reasons. But this is all good discussion for this group, and that's why we're here, so we can have this discussion and see if this makes sense for us to do.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, this is great. And I'll share the link with Alvaro so he sees this conversation. And I know I believe he can make the next meeting, which will be in, I think, January at this point, given that we're close to the end of the year. We'll take a look at the calendars. We're closed for the last 2 weeks of the year for DoK.
December 20 is the next.
Which we're closed that week, so we won't be meeting. But yeah, I think that the feedback you had was good. And I had the initial same reaction, which is why not Operator Hub? So I think we want to have Alvaro come and kind of talk through that. And we as a group decide, well, does it make sense to do something on DoK, or just, as you said, extend what's there? Especially because people already go there as a resource and a tool. And maybe we can just add some DoK, flair on there. Awesome. Okay. Is there anything else in terms of operator information that you hear from customers, industry, et cetera, that you think would be beneficial for DoK to focus on? Any information gaps you think that we should fill?
Right now, by memory, I don't remember, but I can prepare something for the next meeting for sure. Because I actually have a lot of interaction with customers.
Okay.
Data. Yeah, and especially related to storage and specific storage, and which one is the one that should be used and why, how the customers are actually using and relying on storage.
Okay.
And yeah, I can prepare something for the next meeting for sure.
Okay, that'd be great.
It will not be that long, but
yeah. If you want to add something, just add it to the agenda and bring it as a topic, and we can talk through. I'm sure we'll continue to talk through this this matrix idea and see what makes sense. And to add to what Alvaro was saying, he talked about it as Postgres initially. We said, well, if we're going to do it as DoK, we want to focus on any database operator. And in fact, I'd love to do it for any type of operator, period. So not just database operators, but other types of operators down the line. But we thought we would start with constrain it a little bit, which is always good. Start with database operators and see if we could come up with that core set of features and go from there. Yeah, awesome. Well, then I will follow up on Slack too with the details about the CNCF tag storage stuff as well, and we can.
I'll try to make tomorrow meeting for the tag storage.
Okay, great.
For sure. And the next meeting will be when?
The next meeting, good question. Let me pull up my calendar. Oops. It looks like it might be January 3rd. That might be tricky because people will be coming back, but we'll say it's January 3rd.
Okay.
We can all wake up after the holiday break together.
Yeah, and there's Epiphany on Friday, so people usually take those 3 days on holiday. Yeah.
We'll see if that works for folks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, glad you could join. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks to you, Melissa.
All right, we'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.